presentation. And we will be recording this week's roundtable, and it'll be up on the YouTube channel for you to view later. All right, so go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Paul, for inviting me to be with you today. All right, so let's talk about the community of hope. It's going to start showing me who's showing up to your meetings now, so I'm getting these little pop-ups now. So we're a service center, and we provide services for people who are homeless or who are about to become homeless. And as I'm sure you can imagine, we're seeing a whole lot more people recently that are finding themselves in a situation where it's difficult to pay their rent since they have lost a lot of income because of coronavirus. But currently, we provide a lot of services that are just basic services for people who are living on the streets, something that I just was able to partake in myself, things like showers, laundry, lockers for people to put their things in during the day, mail, phone, internet, clothing, and of course it gets into more intensive programs with housing, income support, and then we do have our emergency shelter at Camp Hope. So we just finished up our last fiscal year at the end of June. And this last year, we served 2,744 people. Likely it was higher than that. Not everybody does sign in. And you see I've broken it down here by gender and also in the age ranges of people that we are serving. And we do have children that we serve, but we serve their family units and get them into housing. So we don't have any children that are actually at Camp Hope. They have to be accompanied by a parent or a family member or whoever has guardianship of them. We also have specialized services for our veterans. We do have a housing preference for veterans. And we have a really unique partnership with the Mesilla Valley Public Housing Authority. They have an apartment complex that back in about 2007 or 2008 decided that it was sort of a difficult apartment complex to manage, and so the director at that time and the director of the housing authority decided that they would only house homeless veterans at that complex. And so we've been able to do that since that time. So we have a memorandum of understanding. Now, not every veteran has to live there. Our veterans have a preference of where they'd like to live. Some don't want to be around anyone. But for many others, it's been really helpful because they're around people who not only have that military service history, but they also have the connection that they've also experienced homelessness. And we do have a case manager on site at the veteran group home, and he helps the veterans with a variety of things. Like we have therapy services, and we also do classes there. We do art projects. They're going to be starting up doing some gardening. So we just try to keep everybody engaged and as social as they want to be. Last year, our agency served 317 veterans overall, which was an increase in veterans that we were serving from the year before. Here, just some more stats. You were able to see some of the other basic services that we provided. So, you know, Community of Hope, when it started, it was just an emergency day shelter. So people would come in, use the phone, get a shower, get a blanket, see you tomorrow, that kind of thing. But we've really evolved into something that's much more than that, especially by realizing that the way to end homelessness is to house people. We do have a lot of volunteers, or we did. We don't have so many volunteers right now during the pandemic, but overall the hours that we've had totaled 11,830, and that equaled about 141,179 in donated hours, which is money that we can actually use as leverage in our federal match grants. Income support, we have a couple of different programs that help people to increase their income. It's another facet that we feel is important in ending people's homelessness. If somebody is homeless, they don't just lack a roof over their head. A lot of times they also lack income or health care. They may be food insecure, transportation might be an issue. So our agencies really try to provide these wraparound services to make sure that we're covering every facet that will give somebody the best chance for successful housing. Last year, we assisted 110 clients with our Social Security disability benefit program. And just 2 years ago, we started a new program called Mano, day labor program. And that was a partnership with City of Las Cruces. One of our counselors really wanted to get something going like that here. And so what we created is we have 2 vans, and they take out 10 people each. So we have 20 people who are homeless or on the brink of homelessness, who go out to assigned designations that are city property, and they provide labor. So they do, as you can see in the picture here, you know, that's probably, I think, at Desert Trails Park. They go through Veterans Park, Fern Lake, West Mesa Airport area, Traverse Trail. So they go all over town on city property areas and parks and beautify those properties. At the end of their 5-hour shift, they come back to the Community of Hope. They get lunch that El Caldito provides, and they get paid cash at the end of that session. So, you know, it not only gives people money in their pocket, but it also gives them, you know, that feeling you get when you get a good day's work in, but it's also connected them with services. So it's an opportunity for supervisors to connect them to either longer term employment through workforce solutions, but to also say, like, hey, where are you sleeping? Where did you sleep last night? Do you have issues with addictions? You need to see a caseworker about housing. And so it's a time when we can also try to work with people to, again, address some of those other issues that they may have surrounding their homelessness. Last year, 733 people went out to provide this service. 553 were men, 180 women. And I think another thing that the Mano y Mano program really illustrates is that it dispels that myth that homeless people don't want to work. They just, you know, we're turning away between 20 and 30 people a day who really want to go out and work. It doesn't mean that they are necessarily able to take on long-term sustainable jobs. Many of the people that we assist are on fixed incomes. For people who are receiving disability benefits from, say, mental health issues, you know, the general number is about $721 a month. And I think we could all be very hard pressed to make ends meet each month, especially times like this when it's so hot and you've got your AC or your swamp cooler cranking. It makes it really difficult. And so Mano y Mano has helped a lot of people. And we do a survey with them. We ask the top things that they're spending that funding on. And a lot of times their phone is one of the top priorities. A motel room. Some have used it for utility bills. And then we've had some that have gone into our own programs and they've used it as their security deposit to get into one of the housing programs. Obviously, it's their money. They can use it how they want. I'm sure some of them are using it in ways we would hope they would not. But again, that opens up a conversation for us to talk to them about how we can help with that. We also do assist with job searches and applications and provide resume writing assistance. Camp Hope. So we started Camp Hope in November of 2011. And it was a response to a lot of people were sleeping on the property of the Community of Hope, which is city property. And camping was not an allowable activity as the way it was zoned at the time. And so we needed to find a way to allow people to stay there and to be safe and be close to services. And so we approached City Council and asked them if we could try out having a tent city. And it was 3 people who were experiencing homelessness at that time who came up with the idea and said that they would manage it with the supervision of the Community of Hope staff. And the City Council did not have a better alternative, didn't want to build another shelter. And so they said, yes, we will allow Camp Hope to go forward. So we did it for 3 months. And what we found was that it was really successful. It streamlined the services that we were providing. In the past, people were sleeping out all over town. And if an apartment became available or their Social Security appeal date came up, we would spend a lot of time trying to find that person. Whereas by having Camp Hope, when we found that they were right in our backyards, they were signing up for services, they were becoming a community, they were encouraging each other to sign up for housing. And it just ended up being something that we felt strongly that we should continue. It was a piece that was sort of missing from that puzzle in terms of helping people be safe and sheltered while encouraging them to go into housing. So it's not a funded project. Federal government is not funding tent cities at this time. We can have about 50 people. We can have, that's our cap, but we typically have somewhere around 40, 45 people. We don't have overnight staff there, and so we found that 40 is really sort of the golden number for us. And something that's been really interesting in the progression of having Camp Hope is I can't tell you how many emails and phone calls I've had since March when COVID started asking about how to run a tent city, because so many communities now are wanting to try to do something like that while the pandemic is occurring. So I've been talking to people from Ohio, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Missouri, everywhere. They're all reaching out, asking about Camp Hope, and we share that information. If we can reduce people migrating and help other communities take care of their own, then you bet I'm gonna continue to help people establish camps as appropriate in their communities. With the residents who are there at Camp Hope, they're encouraged to contribute 6 hours of service per week. They do things like, cleaning the bathrooms. There's a kitchen, outdoor kitchen, landscaping, and especially sorting donations and handing out donations. We also encourage them to create a housing plan, and we sign them up for housing. And really, it's just provided a safe place for people while they transition into housing, and again, keeps them close to services. Because the entire Community of Hope campus is basically just that. It's 5 agencies serving people who are homeless or precariously housed. So there's the agency where I'm at, the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope, and we have the income programs, the housing programs, and Camp Hope. Next to us, we have Casa de Peregrinos, a food pantry. We have Jardín de los Niños, the daycare for homeless children. We have Amador Health Center that provides behavioral health and physical health care for people, and El Caldito Soup Kitchen. Now, even though we are all tied with clients and a lease agreement, we are all separate agencies with our own funding sources, our own board of directors, and programming. The directors, we all meet once a month to talk about campus issues and make sure that we are meeting our missions and that we're providing all of the services that we think are needed to help people during their time on the streets. Last year, Camp Hope residents contributed 9,293.5 hours of volunteer service. And the total amount of people that we served at Camp Hope was 234 people. Of the 62 of the 234 people who exited Camp Hope into housing, we had 9 of them that were able to self-resolve, 7 went into other housing programs, and 46 went into Community of Hope programs. And here's just a snapshot of Camp Hope. So you can see where the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope, that's my building right there, and then just out at the backyard is the camp. This is kind of an older picture. There are a lot more structures over the tents now. We had been partnering with Home Depot, who helped us with a grant, and they would provide 20 to 30 volunteers that came from all over, not just Home Depot, and MSU, Latter-day Saint missionaries. We got a ton of volunteers. We put together 5 structures at a time. I think we have 15 left to do, but again, right now we can't have people gathering because of the pandemic, so it's been kind of on hold. So we still have quite a few people who are just in direct sunlight with just the tent and a tarp right now. And I can tell you those tents are hot right now. Here are just some other pictures of Camp Hope. Project Dignity was a project that we built outdoor bathrooms and an outdoor kitchen. For about the first 5 years, we had porta potties, and so we were really happy to be able to upgrade through the support of generous donors. And then you can see one of the structures being built. And that brings us to how we support Camp Hope. We do an annual fundraiser called Tents to Rents. It doesn't mean that we're renting them tents. It means that we're trying to raise awareness that we have people living in tents and that we want to move them into paying their own rent in their own apartment and help end their homelessness. So it's an online fundraiser. And if you kind of think about it this way, this is how the idea came to me. Very shortly after I became the executive director, I got a phone call and they told me that I had been nominated by an anonymous source to help raise money for March of Dimes, and that I was going to be arrested until I raised enough money to get me out of jail. And so law enforcement came and fake arrested me. And you can imagine that all of the people experiencing homelessness there, they know I'm the director. I had been working in the housing programs for 6 years prior to becoming the director. They get to see me hauled away with handcuffs. They got a real kick out of that. So then I had to call everybody I knew, try to raise enough money, and which I was able to do, and then they let me go, which really means they took me to De La Vega's for lunch. But I raised a bunch of money, and so I wanted to do something that was kind of like that without that jail connotation. So what I decided was we would do an online platform where people would try to raise money for Community of Hope that would go directly to Camp Hope to help us to operate it. And Unitarian Church has been just amazing being a participant. Last year, the church raised $2,622. So we just kicked off our campaign August 14th. So this is the time to start directing people to the tentstorents.org website on behalf of UU Church so that you guys will get the credit for that amount. Or they can send in checks, and as long as they put UU on that memo line, we will then upload it ourselves to show that you are earning the money. So here's what that website looks like. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse moving around. Probably not. I'm not sure. But if you look toward the bottom, you can see Unitarian Universalist Church. Now, as you start to raise $100, those tents will turn into a house. And so it's again symbolizing that you're helping somebody move out of a tent into their own apartment. And so these are your competitors. This is everybody who's trying to raise money right now. We've got Good Samaritan Housing Helpers, Hallmark, Hearts for Hope, and that's actually our development committee at the Community of Hope. Kristen Knight, Lucretia Jones, Community of Hope, of the same ilk, Small Businesses, Big Hearts, Solstice Living Center, Senior Living, St. Andrews, and Unitarian Universalist Church. And then we also do have some sponsors that kick in some funding for us that have a harder time doing the online campaign part, but will support us with a check from their business. And if you were to click on, if you go to tentstorents.org and you click on it, then you can see what the bio is for the Unitarians page. And then there's a donate button right there, and somebody can just donate that way, or again, send a check in. So what we have found, again, is that housing is what ends homelessness, providing people that space, that home. Last year, we were blessed to have housed 570 people, including 150 children with their families. Total people helped with utilities, 870. Total veterans helped with utilities, 82. And then again, overall, over 300 veterans this year. Community of Hope has several different types of housing programs. So we are pretty heavily funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We have several of those grants. Some are temporary, might be anywhere from 1 month to 24 months. Or we also have programs that are for people who have permanent disabilities, and they can permanently be housed by that program. We also have funding from the VA to house people. We have money from the City of Las Cruces for housing, and we also have money from the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority, which is a state quasi-governmental entity. We own 3 homes ourselves, so we understand what we are asking landlords when we ask them to partner with us. So once we fill up our 3 homes, then we go out and we try to work with landlords, over 100 that we worked with last year, who rent to our clients. And so whenever we're moving somebody in, we give them all the donations that we think that they will need to outfit their apartments, their units. And then the caseworkers do home visits every month to make sure that they're keeping up their end of the bargain. And if there's anything more services that we can be providing, that we want to make sure that we're making those referrals. And then clients will contribute 30% of their income toward the rent. Sue's house, that's a home that we do own, and that houses 4 chronically homeless women with permanent disabilities. And the picture of the gentleman on the right holding his keys is one of the veterans that we placed at that complex that he's talking about. Most recently, we have just broken ground on a new apartment complex. We're really excited. This is something that we've been working on since 2016 with the Mesilla Valley Public Housing Authority. We asked them to be on our team to provide some more housing in the city of Las Cruces because there is just not enough. We have a shortage of affordable housing units by over 7,000, a study that the League of Women Voters did, and other City of Las Cruces surveys. And so we are taking a property, it's a current property, and we just broke ground, like I said, a couple of weeks, back in July, mid-July, and we're turning the 20 units into 40 efficiency apartments. Community of Hope will have a staff person on site, and we're really hoping that it will be open by next spring. I'll be able to fill it with people from the camp. I could empty the camp tomorrow if that thing goes up. So we're really excited. I'm sure I will be coming back to the church. See, one of the things that we would really like to do is make sure that we outfit each of those units, and so we'll probably ask for sponsors, and it will be like just outfitting a new little apartment. And so that's something would have been really easy for us to just remain comfortable in how we were serving people who are homeless by handing out blankets and things like that, but felt like development was something that we needed to really work on and bring to our community and not just wait for somebody else to build. And so we've been really lucky to partner with the partners of the City of Las Cruces and the Housing Authority to make this project go forward. So with the COVID-19, we have had to change the ways we operate. Our front desk now has a lovely plexiglass covering. We all wear masks. We hand out masks to the clients. A lot of our home visits we have to do outside, or we're doing just a lot more phone calls with our clients. The picture of the gentleman with the masks, that's part of the Mano day labor program. So they all have to wear masks, of course, because they're all getting in a van and going from site to site. The City of Las Cruces has been amazing in that they immediately kicked in funding for rent and mortgages. We also got funding from the VA for housing and motels. We put an online application to make it easier for people so that they wouldn't have to come in. So we've tried to be really accommodating for people. We also got additional funding from the state. And so far we've helped 192 people with mortgages, rents, motel stays, and that's just from April until June. On a daily basis, staff is bringing me at least 10 requests for rent or mortgage assistance. That money is going pretty quickly. We have had Department of Health out to the Community of Hope to provide mass testings. From those testings, we had one volunteer from Casa Peregrinos tested positive and one staff at Community of Hope. Since that time, we haven't had clients that have come back with negative results, but it feels like a waiting game. And I think just like everybody else feels, that it feels like a waiting game to see what is going to happen and what our response is going to be. So we've had a lot of conversations with the Department of Health and with other state entities and the City of Las Cruces. Our approach is to try to house as many people as we can. That would lessen the amount of people contact that they would have. But while, again, we're having a really hard time finding enough empty one-bedroom apartments. So one of the things we've considered then is just utilizing motels. If somebody were to contract COVID-19, the state will then help us put them into a motel and follow up that way. We've also talked about instituting another camp. That's not my first choice. I would rather try to utilize a motel, especially while it's still really hot right now. And so that's sort of our game plan at this time. Amador Health Center, which is on our campus, does have the capacity to test as well. So if people are feeling sick, then they can go over there. And we are doing screening and we are doing temperature taking with our clients. We don't have any visitors allowed at any of the home sites that we own, as well as at Camp Hope. People can still bring donations, but we're not allowing outside visitors into the camp at this time. So we do have some very serious concerns about evictions and non-payment of rent. My discussions with Secretary McCamley at Workforce, there are 140,000 people that just lost their unemployment benefits. And in the surveys that they did, they said 90% of the people said that they did not know how they were going to pay their rent next month. We don't have enough money for that many people's rent. So, and that's across, of course, the entire state of New Mexico. Fortunately, not just Las Cruces, but Still, there's probably a very large chunk that's going to happen to here, which may mean that we either have to have a bigger camp or better response to finding as many units as we can and trying to be as creative as we can, which again, is all the more reason for us to try to end homelessness. So just a couple of pictures. This is back when I was a caseworker, and that's Floyd, and I was moving him into his own unit. That was probably around 2007. I've been with Community of Hope for 14 years. They have flown by most of the time. And the other picture is Valerie. She moved into the women's home that I showed a picture of earlier, and she's still living there, doing great. So a lot of times people ask how they can get involved. We do have a board of directors. We also have committees, like our fundraising committee. But of course, basic ways of donating financially and clothing, household items, or volunteering time once the pandemic subsides a bit. I have my contact information here. That is my phone number, 523-2219. If you ask for Nicole, you will get me or my voicemail or call back within 24 hours pretty much. Or my email always comes to me pretty quickly. One other thing I wanted to show real quick, if I could, is wanted to show a real quick video of the Tents to Rents kickoff. Let's see if I can get that. Not sure if it's going to let me. I'm getting there.
Hi, I'm Nicole Martinez, Executive Director of the Mesilla Valley Community of Hope. We promote dignity and empowerment to those experiencing homelessness. In fiscal year 2020, Camp Hope provided shelter to 234 people. Camp Hope does not come with any government or subsidized funding. As a participant in Tents to Rents, you will be raising funds to help pay for supplies and services, housing vouchers, utilities, and insurance. Last year, because of our tremendous participants and sponsors, we raised over $56,000. Our goal this year is to exceed that amount. With your generosity and support, we will raise awareness and funds to help our community members and end homelessness.
All right. So I just wanted to, show you that video. And again, thank the Unitarian Universalist Church for participating in Tents to Rents in years past and this year. And I would like to invite you to ask any questions that you might have.
Nicole?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Charlie. We have a couple of single mattresses or mattresses for single beds, and I don't know whether you would need them. The question is, should we clean them up so you could use them, or should we just take them to the dump?
If they're usable, presentable, normally we don't accept mattresses if we're not quite sure who's bringing it, just because we want to avoid bed bugs, things like that. For some issues like that. A lot of times, if it's people that we know or we know that the beds are in good shape, then we can take them directly to a veteran. So yes, I would say if you wouldn't mind giving me a call or an email, then I can help set that up.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Will you pick them up, or we need to bring them over there?
We can pick up.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Nicole, this is Dave. First, thank you for what you're doing. And second, in part of town, I live on the east side, and we'll frequently drive by an intersection off Floman, and there'll be people begging for money. You know, they have their signs out and everything else. Are those, you know, sort of your clients at all, or are those people that just are pursuing a different avenue to address their homelessness?
Sure, it's both. Since the city had to repeal the ordinance against panhandling, it's really, you know, made homelessness more visible. Oftentimes, you know, it is our clients, and they are trying to raise money. Maybe they couldn't get into Mano that day. But because it's now legal, we also see a lot more people who are passing through town that are flying signs and trying to make money as they move along their way. So I know that it's a mix of both because, you know, obviously I pay attention when I see someone there and see if I know them. We also have little business cards that if it's somebody we don't know, we will hand out to them. It has a little map on how to get to the community of hope. And then we try to tell them about the Mano program so that they can partake of that income source rather than doing it by panhandling, which can be really dangerous. So yeah, I would say it's a fair mix.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nicole, moving forward, what are some of your bigger issues, especially with coronavirus and this lack of funding for people that are out of work? It just seems to me that we're going to have a lot more homeless people moving forward.
Yes, those are definitely the concerns that we have. And even if they were to throw a bunch of money at us for enough, you know, people, we just don't have the units right now. So that's been a really tricky part. I mean, I have staff that's dedicated to just making, you know, outreaching to landlords to try to make sure that we're finding enough units. I'll be hosting a town hall with Lieutenant Governor Morales and Secretary McCamley on Tuesday to kind of spur the state, you know, to move forward on either providing more affordable housing, vouchers, whatever can be done, and sort of see how we can pool more resources to really just be aggressive about housing.
So affordable housing is one of your big issues.
Yes.
Nicole, this is Jan. I believe that your housing program pays the rent for the first year. Is that correct?
It depends on the program. Some we pay forever, a portion. Some of them it's are very short term. Some are up to 24 months. So it really depends which program and the capacity of the person seeking the assistance.
Okay, I didn't realize it went beyond a year. That's good because some people return to their addictions and they can't keep jobs, and but you can keep them housed. That's good.
I agree. Yes.
Now, a number of your, this is Dave again, a number of your clients are veterans, as you noted. Are those subsidized by the VA and because they're otherwise unable to cope, or how does that work?
Yes, so we do have funding from the VA, and there are some thresholds that they have to meet for that. They have to have an honorable discharge, or it can't be dishonorable. If they make over 50% of the area median income, or they had a dishonorable discharge, we are not allowed to use the federal funding for them. But then we just categorize them as somebody who is homeless, and then they can go into any other HUD or MFA program or City of Las Cruces tenant-based rental assistance program that we have. But for the veterans that are eligible, that have either under 50% area median income and that have met that threshold for homelessness, then we can help them with VA funding.
Thank you.
I see that there is one chat. Oh, it's a private one. Somebody just thanking me for making the presentation.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Nicole, this is Elena Espinosa. I was just wondering, kind of just looking at what's happening right now, what do you think the forecast is for people losing their homes here? Is it pretty dire? I mean, is it?
I am hopeful that we'll know a little bit more on Tuesday, but I also know that the city is willing to put forward some more vouchers for COVID, and even if it has to be putting people in motels for a while until things do open up. I think that, normally we look for apartments, and especially apartments with utilities included if possible. But I think one of the things that we're really going to start looking for is any sort of a housing opportunity, even if it's a home. Maybe we need to look at shared housing with people, just so that we can, again, get a handle on what's happening and what might be to come. But I also hope that the town hall spurs our legislature to also have more say in this and put more money into housing people throughout the state in general. And I know that we have representatives that are doing that. Representative Rubio has been really vocal about her concerns about the housing forecast. And so I know we've got some champions up there, and really hoping that they all come through. And if that happens, then of course, our people will get the boots on the ground and get out there and take care of whatever we can.
So is this, Dave, again, is the number of, you'd mentioned 190,000 people, or I believe individuals lost their benefits, and I understood that to be in the state of New Mexico. Did I understand that correctly?
Secretary McCamley told me it was 140,000.
140, okay. Still a very large number, and that would then not count the dependents, like if there were children or other things.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Wow.
Right.
That's a real problem.
Yeah, he is very, very worried. That's why we're trying to get together and figure this out.
Well, so how much do you spend on these hotels you put people up in? I mean, wouldn't it be like, wouldn't you spend the same amount of money just keep paying the rent for the people where they live right now, rather than letting them lose their apartment they're living in?
Yes, absolutely. If we can keep them housed, that's what we would do. We would just pay their rent. A lot of times the landlords will take advantage of saying, I want you gone, even though there was a moratorium on evictions, things like that. So it's in those particular circumstances where the landlord doesn't want to wait to get paid. Or we've had so many people come in that are already 3 months behind and didn't know who to ask. And it's come to that point where the landlord is now over it. So if there's any way for us to keep them housed and pay their mortgages, or rent, we are doing that. Absolutely. But for those that we can't, that absolutely are being evicted, especially if it's non-payment of rent. We still have landlords, people violating their leases. Landlords are terminating their lease. And so we've got to try to find a place for them really quickly. And sometimes quickly is harder to do. It has to pass an inspection. The landlord has to be willing to work with us. All of those things can end up taking a long time. And so sometimes putting them into a motel will help. And that's not normal. We don't normally spend money on motels. We've never had motel funding. We're housing, but this is a special time. And yeah, you ask a good question. How much? It was amazing when we first started to put, the VA asked us to, get every vet off the street. So we had vets in Camp Hope, and we just went to every single one and said, while we're waiting for your apartments to get ready, you're going in a motel. We don't want you around people. The VA is giving us money, let's go to motels. And I can tell you from one day to the next, those motels started raising their rates immediately.
Oh.
Well, yeah.
It's been so disheartening, yeah.
Some people are evicted for more than just non-payment of rent. They're evicted because of their behaviors. And how can you help them? They need to be in isolated areas. I mean, you can't have them where other people are, because they get into these arguments, these loud arguments in the middle of the night, and they're threatening with guns, and there's just, too much stuff going on. They get paranoid, and so, they think somebody's going to hurt them, and so they get ridiculous, running around nude. I know this. My son lives in an apartment complex, and You know, he says, well, so-and-so at the end is gonna have to go, you know. I mean, they work together with each other, and they you know, accept a lot of behaviors, but they don't accept running around nude when there are children being counseled across the street for sexual abuse and, you know, other things like that. What do you do with the people who, you know, they're on meth and they get that crazy paranoia and react to it? What do you do with them?
Sure. I think you've just pointed out that our job is not easy. And of course, we have a lot of people with what we like to call big behaviors. And sometimes it means we have to try over and over again. And it means we have to make as many amends as possible with as many landlords as we can. But we realize that we think that, you know, housing is a basic right, and we need to keep working with people. And maybe it didn't work that one time, but we're going to try again, and maybe we're going to get it right this time. Maybe we're going to fix the addiction this time, or we're going to be able to reduce it so that they figure out that they can, you know, there are a lot of people that do things inside the privacy of their own home, and they can do it. You know, you can't have a glass of wine at Camp Hope, but you sure can in the privacy of your own home. You could also do meth in your own home, and, you know, nobody would be bothered. But there are some people that just can't do that quietly in their homes. And what we want to do is start to work with them on better behaviors, how to be a good tenant, how to be a good neighbor. And that's part of what we do. And it's not easy.
Right.
Nicole, before somebody asked the question about the cost of the hotel, I was going to ask if any of them work with you for better rates, and obviously that may be a minority.
Yeah, we have 2 motels that have been pretty good to us. They raised their rates in the beginning, but now they've sort of leveled off. We've kind of said, you know, look, we've got a lot of people and we'll keep bringing them here if you play fair with us. And so those 2 motels have been working with us pretty well, and that's Roadway Inn and Wood Springs Hills or Suites, something like that.
Is there any way to recognize them so that motels have an incentive to help out?
Yeah, we could. It would be up to them if they wanted us to announce that we were putting lots of homeless people in their motels. You know, that people are allowed privacy, but, you know, we are thanking them, and we're very gracious every time that they work with us, and, you know, we respond every time they need us to go out. And so I think that we've, you know, really been able to work well together.
Okay.
So is there a substantial unmet need right now, Nicole? I mean, you mentioned this huge number that's coming statewide, but that number sort of seems pretty big in comparison to some of your other numbers.
Yeah, honestly, right now, right in front of us, I think tents to rents is their biggest thing. And if we can raise a lot of money so that we can keep operating Camp Hope, we can keep people safe at Camp Hope. And then if we need to even add more people to the camp and keep them quarantined there, then that's what tents to rents will allow us to do. And so that's really like the number one thing that's on our minds right now, is taking care of them in this heat. That's something that if we're doing the camp right, then we think that we're going to be able to handle what might be coming.
Well,
A lot of those numbers, Dave, I think will move in with friends and relatives.
Oh, okay.
You know, you'll find multi-generational living and multi-family living in the homes that currently don't have that.
I think I would agree with Jan. I think that's fairly common. That's what will happen.
Thank you.
Nicole, is it a issue? Are you trying to keep them in homes where they have like a mortgage, but they're getting behind? Or how is that going to work? I mean, how is that going to play out?
Yes. So both rents, like if they're in an apartment complex or renting at a home, or a mortgage. Yes. And so, you know, we get all of the verifiable information. We talk to the landlords or the homeowners. We confer with any of their statements, meaning they might have like an eviction notice, or they might have a mortgage statement that will show us. And then we ask for verification of their loss of income. And so a lot of times that means they'll have a printout from Workforce Solutions showing that they were on unemployment, or a lot of times what we do is we talk to the employer themselves, who can verify for us that there's been a reduction in their income. And then we make that payment.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you for everything you do. This was a great program.
Thank you for what you're doing, Nicole. What a commitment.
Yes.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, thanks for coming to present to us today also, Nicole. We enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and again, your support, Intents to Rents and everything else. So thank you very much. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Yes,
Yes,
thanks.
and,
Thank you.
next-
When is
next
the
week-
little, is that little chart already up for us to start donating?
It's live. It's
Is
ready.
it? Okay. Okay. Yay. Okay.
I just wanted to announce that next week we're going to have Jim Peach, who is a Regents Professor at the New Mexico State University. He'll be talking about the economy, how coronavirus is affecting the economy today, and also what the future may hold. So it'll be very interesting. He's been doing this for quite a long time. And so it should be a very interesting roundtable.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks to Sarah also for being our tech support and engineer.
Oh, yes, Sarah. I
Sarah.
depend on Sarah every week, Kalani, to make sure that I got this stuff going right.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you,
Anytime.
See you
Sarah.
later.
Thank you,
Be
Paul.
well. Take care. Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.